Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be talking about setting boundaries in a relationship, and this topic was inspired by the AITA Reddit post, "Am I the asshole for asking my husband's family to stay elsewhere while they visit?" This post was written by Personal Scarcity 251. So I'm going to start off by reading certain parts of the article, and then we'll go from there. So it starts off by saying, "My husband's parents live overseas and they came to visit us when I had a baby. I get that they were excited and wanted to see the baby. However, I wanted some privacy for recovery before having visitors just days after discharge from hospital. I had asked my husband if they could come a few months later. We also had a live-in nanny to help with the baby the first month or so. My husband said no, that they're not coming later and they're here to help. So they're coming and they're staying for 2 months." So right off the bat, we can see how the husband is overstepping boundaries. I believe that the wife is creating clear communication about what she wants, like the needs she wants met. And the husband is just, being disrespectful, avoiding it. I think that boundaries are very important, especially in relationships, marriages, and especially marriages that involve like a third party. In this case, it would be like the baby and like the husband's family, which are a third party in the relationship since they're being involved. So the discussion of these topics would probably be a little bit more effective at the beginning of the relationship, like setting boundaries. Even though like at the beginning of the relationship, it can be kind of hard to come in and have like those expectations of like, oh, I'm gonna set this boundary and they're gonna follow it because I said so. It can be a little bit difficult, so it's important to have like expectations that like realistic expectations, expectations that your partner is going to be able to meet those requirements, and you guys are going to have a mutual understanding and agreement of what those boundaries are and how you want them to go about them. I think that in this specific situation, this is something that they could have set boundaries a little bit earlier in the pregnancy, probably at the beginning, or like when they were planning the baby, if they were planning it, and just kind of like go about like, hey, once the baby's here, how do you want to go about it? Like, what is your input on visitors, having family over, having friends over? When would it be best for you to start, creating that like connection with others? What roles everybody plays in this new relationship, in this new phase, because there's a lot that comes into it. It's not just like, oh, there's a baby added into this equation. It's a whole turn of events. There's your schedule shifts from one day to another. You have to get used to all these new routines, these new it's a new phase in your life. So I think that being a little bit more prepared and having this conversation a few months in advance would probably be the best to prepare about it and avoid any type of uncomfortable situation, making anyone feel uncomfortable, invalidated, or just out of place. So I do think that the fact that the husband was more concerned about his parents coming over to visit and help was a little bit rude, especially since the wife did mention like, hey, I'm not really up for it. She offered alternatives, like visiting at other times. So I think that was rude, especially since he mentioned they were going to help and they have a live-in nanny. It just seems like now there's a lot of people in the equation, and I can see how that can be a little bit stressful, overwhelming, having all those people in your home. So there was a second visit that happened a couple months later. And she said that the husband informed me they're coming and for longer than previously thought. There was no discussion with me. We had a huge fight before they arrived, and his mother wasn't happy that our baby addresses my mother and grandmother terms, which sound very similar to the terms for his mother in Chinese dialect. They did not discuss this with me directly. They just went to my husband and called me disrespectful, which made my husband angry with me. I did not have a chance to explain that it's not uncommon where I'm from for children to use similar but not exactly the same terms to address both grandmothers, and that they can learn the difference if we teach them. I explained this to them when they arrived, and they agreed not to push it. So, within this part, I think that we can point out how the in-laws are creating a lot of tension between all relationships. And in many instances, men and women cope differently with their emotions. So, it's been proven, statistically, that women deal with their emotions more by communicating, talking, and wanting to solve the issue. And men go about their emotions by just avoiding it and letting it go as if it never happened. So, we can kind of see how the in-laws going to the husband about their negative comments about the wife, and the wife going to the husband about her wants with her in-laws can be a little conflicting for the husband, especially since they're both coming at him, and he might just be avoiding it, trying to if I just pretend that nothing's happening, nothing's really happening. And that's very inappropriate in this situation, because he's disregarding not only the wife's needs, but now he's allowing the in-laws to overstep these boundaries into the wife's personal life, and their relationship as a husband and wife. So this can be stressful for both partners, the husband obviously receiving everything, and the wife and the in-laws who are providing all those comments and all that feedback. This term is called stress spillover, and as it's mentioned in Tanya Brandella's website article, perceived emotional invalidation and psychological distress, as well as relationship satisfaction in couples. Stress spillover can be common in relationships that lack communication skills, and it can impact the satisfaction of their relationships based on the comments made by external factors. So in this case, the external factors would be the in-laws, and what they're saying can have an impact on the relationship of the wife and the husband, especially if they're obviously lacking that communication skill. I feel like from the wife's point of view, she's so far shown that she can communicate effectively of her needs and wants, but the husband is just kind of disregarding it and not really sitting down and having a conversation or creating a plan of action with her. So this is definitely somewhere where you can see a lot of that stress spillover. I'm gonna go into the next part of the post. So, third visit. There was no discussion with me. He just informed me that they're visiting for X amount of weeks. We had the biggest fight. All the resentment I had poured out. His parents picked my induction date. Our baby's name had to be approved by them because some names sound too similar to a relative. Therefore, we were not allowed to use it. Meanwhile, his sister had a baby, and she used a combination of my name and my baby's name. We weren't allowed to set up our cot or our car seat since it was bad for the baby. So I struggled in the hospital while he did that after birth, and then didn't know how to loosen the straps to buckle the baby in when we left the hospital. I said that I was fine if they were wanting to visit for a week, which was what I initially had in mind, but any longer than that, they can stay elsewhere. They can well afford an Airbnb or a hotel, and we can meet them daily for meals. My husband told me that I could take the baby and move to my mom's whenever they visit. The house is theirs and they gave it to him. Before we got married, I made it clear I did not want to move in and I wanted a place of our own. My husband told me that we'd get a place of our own and that this was temporary. Then he would make up all sorts of ridiculous reasons for why other homes weren't suitable. Now he says he will never move and won't compromise on this house. The baby slept horribly the whole time they were here last time and was so unsettled. I know babies can adapt, but I know I have no right to tell them not to come. It's their home. Am I the asshole? I just wanted my husband to include me in the discussion, but he doesn't see that. I plan to move since I've been told to leave and not to come back, but my heart breaks for my baby. So, in this part, I think it's safe to say that she is not the asshole. But you can definitely see how the husband tends to invalidate the wife's emotions. And I think that validation is very important in setting boundaries because it plays a big role. And one of my favorite explanations is actually from the article Setting Boundaries in Your Marriage by the Chattanooga Times Free Press. It says, when facing a decision, you should ask yourself, will this be helpful to my marriage? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. So, I think that's very useful because a lot of the times we do stuff without really validating or acknowledging our partner. So, in this case, I feel that's what's really going on. You know, he's being a little bit selfish, the husband, not really considering the needs or the wants of the wife, and rather than trying to create that personal bonding time for them, he's welcoming his parents, which may not always be a bad thing, but if both are not on the same page, it can become a little tricky. So it's definitely important to set those boundaries, and I think this is a great example of why boundaries are important, you know, not just in marriages, like regular relationships, friendships, family, work, school, anywhere. Boundaries are very important, and hopefully this Am I the Asshole Reddit post help give you a little insight that you can probably use within your relationships, whether it be a marriage or not. There's a lot of useful information, and hopefully we can use this as a learning point to all be better and validate one another. Set boundaries, be okay with setting boundaries, be okay with being stern on those boundaries. But yeah, it's definitely something that we can all learn from, and I hope you guys liked listening to it as much as I liked reading about it. I thought it was very interesting, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you.